Hello, and for the last time in this format, welcome to the Ark News Christmas special. In this episode, we are going to review the last year, 2021, and talk about what is coming up in the next year, 2022. So, without further ado, and for the last time, let's get started. So, please give a very warm and Christmas welcome to my returning special guest, William.
Merry Christmas and hello.
Season's greetings to you. Firstly, I just want to explain that this will not be the last episode of this news in this current state. In the new year, as I've stated previously, that the channel will be rebranding, and although none of the content will be going anywhere, sort of, I just wanted to let you know that that it is time for a change. So, William.
Yes.
I have some Ark News stats from the past year for you. The channel has posted 30 new videos in the past year. There have been 4 new or different intros. There have been 12 episodes of Ark News. The new series of Ark Highlights was launched with 8 episodes. There's been 1 Community Crunch roundup. And to finish off the stats, we also started the Let's Play series of Ark through this year as well. So those are the Ark News stats, if anyone wants to know some stats, as there are some possible nerds out there. And also, what a year to be playing Ark.
Absolutely.
There's been so much over this year. The release of Genesis Part 2, the release of the next free map, Lost Island, which has happened. The announcement of Ark 2 and the announcement of Ark Fyodor. The Genesis Part 2 release was the first DLC to be released simultaneously on all platforms. However, this was the last paid DLC for Ark Survival Evolved. I covered all the Genesis Part 2 reveals from Extra Life from coming up to the release. Let's not forget that Genesis Part 2 was delayed till June 3rd. Part 2 was released on... I know. Part 2 was released on all platforms at the same time and is the largest map on Ark Survival Evolved. The Exomech added a real-time strategy mode to Ark, and there seems to be continuing success with the vehicles like the Tech Hover Sail, which added the second working vehicle to the game, following the Tech hoverskiff.
Are you trying to say the Tech AVC didn't work?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Or did you forget it?
No.
Like many Ark fans want to do, forget it.
We all forget that certain vehicle, but I'm just stating that there have been 2 successful vehicles in Ark Survival Evolved.
Fair enough.
Well, actually 3 if you count the mech, actually, as well.
It's hardly a creature, is it?
No, so there's actually been 3 successful... Look at that. I'm correcting myself already. There you go. Anyway, the Ultimate Survivor Edition was announced to celebrate the 6th anniversary of Ark Survival Evolved. Studio Wildcard also stated that updates will be continuing for Ark, events and free maps will also be continuing. The channel also did an episode on running and owning a server with Nitrado, which I recommend you check out. The link will be in the description below. Wildcard also announced a new free map, Lost Island, with 3 new creatures, which is available to play now. Right, isn't it, William?
It is, yes. Yes.
They also announced another free map coming summer next year, Ark Fjordor, which will also come with another 3 creatures. There's a lot here. Wildcard did their first creature submission, which they will be doing again for Fjordor. We also did an episode looking at the difference between admin, commands and server settings. And I took a look at the tech creatures. Also, there may be a possible building TLC update coming at some point. Who knows? That is everything that has happened, all the major stuff that's happened this year. Obviously there's always updates, bug fixes, quality of life updates that I could go into extreme detail on, but obviously, you know, we want to talk about the major points here. So much has happened this year.
It has indeed.
And we have so much to look forward to in the next year. Like, Ark 2, Ark Fjordor. Let's go into this, William. Let's go into what we're looking forward to, and let's look back in a sort of open conversation about it, and let's have a chat.
Absolutely.
What we're looking forward to, what we could be possibly dreading, happening, and what our feelings are. I think let's start with Fjordor, because that's in everyone's minds right now. And it's exciting news for all of us, particularly myself, having followed it on Twitter, having seen all the photos after Volgaro's release, knowing the creator, and seeing how similar in theme it is to Ragnarok and all the Viking inspiration stuff. I think it's going to be a really good map if you're into anything Asgard related. Even if you're into Thor, you'll enjoy it.
It just does look to be a nice map. It's obviously, and it's nice because obviously I think we all thought that Lost Island was going to be our last map. Because obviously with Ark 2 just around the corner.
Yes.
I'm sure we were all convinced that this was going to be the last from Ark. So it's nice to see that they've thought about bringing a new one in.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I wasn't expecting more free maps past Lost Island. I was expecting events and sort of quality of life updates with Ark Survival Evolved continuing. I certainly wasn't expecting more free maps past Lost Island. So
I think if we were expecting a map, we would have thought it would be behind another season pass or downloadable content. We weren't expecting a free one, that's for sure.
I think even with downloadable content for Ark Survival Evolved, I would have highly doubted that they would have gone that route. Just because of, they've sort of stated that they wanted to sort of end on Ark Survival Evolved after Genesis Part 2, and it did seem that the storyline sort of ended. They sort of, certainly wrapped up everything that they could possibly do.
Yeah,
Which was
but
quite nice.
where they close a storyline, if they don't fully close it, which they very rarely do, they can always bring new things into it.
Yeah, to me it does seem like they're moving on with Ark 2's story with a new character. That's sort of how it seems to me with Ark 2, is that they're sort of changing, because I mean, I think anyone who's played Ark will know that the storyline kind of centers on Helena Walker, and she's sort of the main character in Ark's storyline. And it seems Ark 2's character is going to be Santiago. So
yeah.
So to me, it would seem we're going to be seeing it from his perspective.
Yeah, but it depends on where they go with that too. As we mentioned in our last chat, it all depends on what they do with that too, because they are keeping their cards still very close to their chest. So,
Yep. Which again, a lot of people were not happy with the extra live stream being no news of Ark 2. I think a lot of people were expecting news.
But I agree with your sentiments in your last video that, have news would have maybe, pushed people's expectations up a bit higher, and this way, we know we're getting a new Ark. We know Van Diesel's going to be in it.
Yeah, I mean, I understand people's frustrations that, we barely have any information, but in my opinion, no information is better than not being hyped about Fjordor and not being hyped about all the other things that they were talking about in that stream.
It appears to me the more hyped a game is, the more people's expectations are of that game. And therefore it's easier to let people down.
Yeah.
The less you talk about something, the more rumours and speculation, and that's all free publicity, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you haven't actually offered anything to the public, so they have no expectations for the new game. Ark was relatively new on the scene, and now look what it, now look at it. It's come from one tropical island, and now it's based on a starship of all places. But no one saw that coming.
That actually physically goes to warp.
Not to mention the amount of famous names that have now been attributed to Ark.
Oh, actually, just on a look back, I just want to say, and if David Tennant ever watches these videos, I just want to tell, if he ever watches this, thank you, because his voice work was absolutely phenomenal, and in Genesis Part 2, it was absolutely fantastic, and yeah, in the boss fight, it was genuinely amazing, and generally I thought it was possibly one of the best boss fights I've ever experienced, and if anyone is looking to play a boss fight, I highly recommend Part 2 as a boss fight, because you generally feel it's intense, there's a lot of stuff going on, the boss is communicating with you, and in other boss fights, you don't get that. All you're doing is just...
Well, a lot of the other boss fights, apart from Genesis Part 1, it's been about taking on a big creature, hasn't it? The Broodmother, the Manticore, the Dragon. Where with Genesis Part 1 and 2, they've decided to make it a more story-driven boss fight.
I haven't experienced the Islands one, so I can't comment, but genuinely speaking, I thought the voice work and also the sort of tete-a-tete between HNA and spoiler alert, Edmund Rockwell was incredible. So I just want to, yeah. If David Tennant never watches these videos, I just want to say thank you for saying yes, because I thought it was incredible, and yeah, I like him as an actor anyway, but kudos, because it was a genuinely incredible sequence to play as a player, and also as someone who has a sort of respect for these kind of sequences. It was amazing to just hear his defeat over time. You genuinely felt for the character by the end, so it was more of an experience rather than a boss fight, which is quite different to boss fights that I've usually played. So yeah, sorry, that ends
your fanboyness.
Yeah, so I just had to. I hadn't said that before, and I have recorded because I did a boss fight, and I have recorded it. So for a later episode of Ark tutorials that I'll be covering. So as we will talk about boss fights, but yeah, Genesis Part 2, I highly recommend its boss fight because it was incredible to play and experience. But yes, talking about Ark 2, it does feel a little bit like I kind of wished they had sort of shared perhaps a little bit of information just about consoles, because that seems to be the question everyone is asking at the minute. But
if it comes out next year, like it's planning to, I believe, the chances are it will run on the One, but be better ran on the Series X or the next gens, should I say, even.
Yeah, it doesn't help that there are confusing tweets out there at the moment, so a lot of that doesn't really help. As I say,
I'm just going on how the market has been through my lifetime.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say the likely scenario is it will work on what it has worked on before. It is possibly just a question of what will happen.
In the past, consoles, when they've been gone to the next generation of console, they will support that generation of console for about 2 years, and most games will come out on both consoles, and most games will come out, you could play it on the old generation, but we prefer you to play it on the new generation. Then after about 3 years, you'll see less and less titles being released on the older generation of console, until you have no choice that if you want to buy the new game, it's time to buy the next gen, because that's just how it's worked in the past anyway.
Yeah.
And then everyone crying because they can't play the game they used to like on an older console because they haven't backwards compatible the game. Not that Microsoft would ever not do that.
Yeah.
Or Sony, for that matter.
Yeah. I mean, I do have, confident feelings. We saw a lot of difference in content with Genesis Part 2, with the missions being separate on the map and things. I do think that's a hint towards a more story-based game, and I do think we're going to get that, because I think that's the direction they're going.
I just hope it's not a complete story-based game. One of the things I like about Ark is it is a sandbox survival, where there is a story element, but it's more of a side character than the main event.
Yeah, I think both are still going to be separate. I think they are insisting that sandbox is still going to be there. And as I say, I think we are going to see a more integrated and a more sort of less side and more sort of flushed out story, because I think that's the direction they're going. Just because I think I think that's what the game needs, and I also think that's also sort of a direction they've been wanting to go since it started. So rather than doing the boss fight and rather than doing all these missions, you get a sort of a story-based content that is still optional, and you can still do the sandbox, but you just get this story-based area that is still going to give you the best of Ark.
No, let's hope so. Yeah, to be fair, the majority of people who play Ark, I don't think a lot of them focus on the story. I mean, prove me wrong in the comments, but you know, I don't think a lot of people started playing Ark because they were so invested in the storyline. They just wanted to take some dinosaurs and maybe play PvP where they could blow up people, or maybe play PvE where they could just see how long they could survive.
Yeah, and I can certainly tell you from my experience, you know, I only know the story because I looked it up later on, and I know a lot about it because, you know, it's interesting. So that's sort of how I know a lot about it. But that doesn't mean to say it's going to interest everybody.
I mean, it'll be, if they put a nice balance, it'll be good, you know. I just don't want it completely story driven like a lot of sandboxes have gone in the past.
Yes.
Oh, you like story? Oh, good. Well, here's a story. You don't want, yeah, it's still sandbox, but just follow the storyline. Keep following. Keep following. Keep following. Oh, good. The game's over now. No, but I want to carry on playing. No, game's over now. But my T-Rex. No, game's over now. Oh.
I mean, certainly with Fjordor, we're getting a very different map than we've seen before. Just sort of going on to something else, you know, we're sort of seeing a map sort of akin to what we had with Genesis Part 1, where you know, I think it will be connected, but I think we're going to see some teleportation with it, because that's what's going to happen. We're going to see certainly some more and interesting creatures because of the Viking element, but we're going to see a lot of cool stuff because of where it's being based, and the sort of mod map is very popular. So we are going to see some interesting things. You know, I think it's going to be something new and exciting that I don't think we've seen since possibly Ragnarok, in terms of community styling and community support for it.
Yeah, but that's the good thing about Ark, isn't it? It does embrace the people who spend their time making mods and maps.
Oh, if you just on that, if you do go on YouTube, there are tons of people who spend ages on these maps. Ages on these maps. There are tons of people who spend time working on these maps and putting in loads of effort to make fantastic maps. Generally, there are some pretty good ones out there that I've seen, and
yeah,
I would, you know, there are some beautiful ones. There are also some pretty cool mods as well, if you want to check out some mods. Certainly Ark Additions is a good one, because they've just updated their creature list with a Giga Killer, apparently, so that looks quite good. But certainly there are some great things out there for people, for those who play on PC, who are lucky enough to play on PC. There are certainly some interesting creatures for you out there at the moment, if you're interested in checking out PC and things, and play on PC and you watch this channel where I play on only Xbox.
Definitely there does seem to be some interesting PC mods, which I wish they brought to the Xbox, but hey ho, what can you do?
Yeah. That's one of the unfortunate things about playing on Xbox. You don't get the really nice mods that appear on Xbox. We just have to wait for them to do after these 3 updates. That's how it works with us. And then you get the nice content, and it's not the same as the PC ones.
Well, no, it's not the same. But we get what we get, and we should be grateful for it.
We should be grateful for new content after 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years, and the very few games that are still supporting the game 6 years after creation. Very few games. Most of them have gone on to the second or, heaven forbid, the third edition of it.
There are. And a sequel is astounding as well. So, kudos to Ark. And as as I said, we do have an exciting time of Ark ahead, and it is an exciting time to be playing the game with all the changes that could be happening and are happening. It's an exciting time.
Yep.
And even rock drakes have just been made breedable, which is astounding. Since they've been added, they haven't been breedable at all, and now you can go and make your rock drakes. And if you really want to, you can go and breed some snails if you really want to.
I'm sure somebody's got a snail farm growing up somewhere. Getting all that good cement and paste.
I bet they do. I bet they do. Well, that is all from this episode of Ark News, except
dun, dun, dun.
I do have a little Christmas treat. Here is an exciting preview of the new intro for Ark News.
Astounding.
So make sure to check out Ark A Celebration. I will be back in the new year. Things will be a different from what they are now, but change is a good thing. If you have any questions about anything in today's episode or anything Ark related, then please comment below. Make sure to hit the notification bell, ding, to never miss a video, and subscribe for more Ark news and content, and have a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year, survivors.
Merry Christmas to all.
And to all, a good night.